Thanks, Senator Blumenthal. Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all of you for being here, for your willingness to be considered for these important positions. Judge Kasuba, I'd like to start with you, if that's all right. A few months ago, in May of this year, you gave a presentation to the Oregon State Bar in which you included the following in your remarks. Quote, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is the heart and soul of the court system. Can we say that? Yeah, I just did, and I say it proudly. Mr. Kasuba, Judge, could you explain what that means?
Yes. Access to justice is at the heart of the work that I do within the courtroom, and ensuring that everybody is dignified and treated with dignity when they come into the courtroom, and for me to preside over those cases.
But you'd say that's the heart and soul of the judicial system, more than equal justice under the law, more than the Constitution, more than the law itself, or the job of interpreting the law fairly, where litigants before you have disagreements as to the law's meaning.
In the way in which, and in the context in which I was using the term and referring to diversity, was the idea and the ideal of equal justice under the law, that everybody, no matter what their background, beliefs, whatever that might be, that everyone is entitled to access to the courts and that equity.
All right, let's circle back to that one in a minute. The First Amendment's protection of free speech is foundational. It's been described as one of our first freedoms. It's been described accurately, I think, fairly, by many as being upstream from all of our other rights. And it has to be protected vigorously. And we also know that there are time, place, and manner accommodations that can go along with that. Among other things, there are special exceptions that occur where riot control measures are necessary due to an outbreak of coordinated, overt violence. In a case that's been referred to briefly in the hearing today, but not much, this Bujarata versus City of Eugene, you're dealing with some interesting circumstances. You had riots taking place. There were 3 nights of terror in Eugene, Oregon, during the BLM riots of 2020, where, in your words, the following was going on. Quote, a crowd applying graffiti, lighting fireworks, and blocking traffic, throwing glass bottles towards officers surrounding a patrol car, smashing its windows and puncturing its tires, with the officers inside the patrol car, mind you. The group, quote, started fires in the roadway, attacked people and vehicles in the downtown area. Several businesses were vandalized and looted, and several officers were injured. You went on to state that members of the group carried heavy backpacks and bottles and were communicating via radios. So in response to this, the city implemented some riot control measures. They imposed a citywide curfew, one that lasted 7 hours. We had 3 rioters who were arrested during the curfew, and despite the Ninth Circuit precedent in the Minotti case, addressing a very similar curfew in Seattle, you decided that the Eugene, Oregon curfew was unconstitutional. Can you explain to me how, consistent with the Ninth Circuit precedent in the Minotti case, how does a 7-hour curfew through the middle of the night in the wave of such destruction and terror prevent ample means of communication? Can you explain that to me?
The Minotti case did provide guidance and assisted me in evaluating the legal analysis that I applied. There were 2 curfews that had been imposed. One was a downtown curfew, so there were geographic restrictions. That was not the curfew that was before me, nor did I find that unconstitutional. It was a citywide curfew that actually subjected everybody in the city, well beyond the boundaries of downtown, to out into the residential neighborhood, such that the application of that curfew, that citywide curfew, could have criminalized people's behavior of just trying to get home, well outside of any of the riots and the protests.
You've praised Ibram X. Kendi as someone who you like, as an amazing historian and author, and you said that you would like to push some of Ibram X. Kendi's ideas even further. I'm sure you're aware He's famous for saying, quote, "The only remedy to racist discrimination is anti-racist discrimination. The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination." Kendi also stated that in order to truly be an anti-racist, you have to be anti-capitalist. So I'd like to know, first of all, what would you do to push Ibram Kendi's ideas even further? And do you believe someone should be praising, someone who is currently a federal magistrate judge, be praising someone who encourages discrimination in any circumstance?
Senator, I don't recall having ever remarked that I want to push Ibram Kendi's ideas further. In questions earlier in this hearing, I clearly stated that the ideas that have been described here that have been attributed to Ibram Kendi are not ideas that are consistent with the 20 years in my public service, 16 as a judge, and the record that I have shown striving to apply the law, the Constitution, and Supreme Court precedent would not be consistent with this idea of supporting the ideas that you've described as Ibram Kendi's.
So you're saying that you have never said that you would like to push some of Ibram Kendi's ideas further?
So I don't recall having made that particular statement.
Okay. I see my time has expired. We'll follow up on these in writing. These are concerning one of the most fundamental laws we have that's embedded within our Constitution, is that governments can't treat people differently on the basis of their race, and that's why this is important to ask about. Thank you.
Judge Kostabai, this case, Gujarati case, has come up several times. Can you tell me, was that subject to review by the district court? How did they view your ruling?
That was a case in which the parties had not consented, and it was reviewed by a district judge and adopted without opinion on the issue of the constitutionality finding with respect to the curfew. The follow-up finding and recommendation is still before the district judge and is on review.
I see.